works out right. Holy shit, it's going right off the bat. Excellent. All right. Well, everybody, it is May 20th, 2018. It is a Sunday, and you are listening to Education by Ed. It is currently 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and grab your poles and get ready to rise up, because Ed's still talking about flags. Ed, take away.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for those who are joining us and those who are going to join us afterwards. I'd like to thank you. Yes, we're going to get involved in a flag. I'm getting ready to start emailing the template that we came up with. You can use it or use your own. The purpose of this, so we can clarify, so everybody gets the comprehension and the understanding of the real purpose, is because we want the senators, city mayors, county commissioners, anybody you email this to. And I'm sending the other laws with it, but the one I'm sending you is so short. It's basically, a paragraph. And I'm not used to doing those type of things small, as everybody knows. But we're going to do it that way, and then that way we can see what kind of responses we get from these men and women. We want them to put in writing the terminology of the flag and the meaning of the flag. Because they put it in writing, that matters to us. People say, well, why does that matter? Because, as a wise man says, you want to be able to have their knowledge, their education, and you want their words certified, or you want at least we get their words, preferably certified or notarized, one or the other, but certified. And then that way you got their evidence. Then that way when something happens and you bring their evidence forward, what are you going to do? Argue with themselves? See, it is one of those things that we look at, Honey, no. So these are things that we look at. So these are things that we have to do. I have no idea who's calling, but I'm not going to accept it right now. But anyhow, these are things that we look at what's going on, how things work, how to prepare things, how do things work for our children, work for us. And that's like the thing next week. I want to get into the birth certificate and structure. And we're going to get into that a little bit heavier next week. But the thing is, with the flag and that circumstances, we want to make sure we have their evidence, their proof, their words. And we are getting it slowly and surely. But this is the point that once we get their words and use it, it's like I was sending out last night and this morning, dealing with their words, dealing with you can't pay debt with debt. And Oregon State even says it like the rest of the country, even admits that. Even the law says that the states have to pay in gold and silver. And that goes back to the Civil War, because in the wartime, when they paid the soldiers, that's what they paid them, gold and silver. Gold and silver is what they call lawful, not legal money. The dollar bill is legal money. But that depends how you want to use legal money. Who you're using legal money for. So, like I said, we're all putting these pieces together. They are coming together. We are opening up a lot of eyes. Those associates of ours, too, are working together. We're working and getting this stuff out. Because we have to prove these things to one another. It's like somebody was mentioning earlier. We want to see the evidence. We want facts. We can't use hearsay in court. We can't use hearsay in life, because all we're doing is teaching fantasy. And is that what we're supposed to do to the children? Teach them a fantasy drift so they're not in reality? So these are the things that we have to proceed, look at, deal with, and use their words. And this is like, I'll bring up a point here. That's the one thing I like, bringing up people's words, because it does work a wonderful deal on how these things or to be paid. Everybody thinks that, you know, when we go back in the old days, things were paid by gold, silver, or barter, or you were either fed a meal or you were, you know, fed, you had roofing over your head, shelter. So, but like it says, no state shall make any type of payment beside gold and silver. It is your intention to conspire to violate federal law. You're in a court order. You know, that's the one thing, is putting these things into, putting this in the structure so the law comes out in effect. And that's Article 1, Section 10. And that's the other thing, is no state shall enter any treaty, alliance, or confederation or grant by anybody. You know, that's the one thing that people have got to realize, that this is Oregon law. This is federal law. And administration law of 1973, that goes to Chapter 836, page, is 2,708 at Section 13. And we'll get that up there eventually. And by the state of Oregon, payment instrument means any electronic or written check, draft, money order, traveler's check, or any other electronic or written instrument or other for transmission or payment of money sold or issued to one or more persons, whether or not the instrument is negotiable. Payment instruments do not include, you're going to love this, folks, any credit card, voucher, any letter of credit, or any other instrument that is redeemable by the issue of goods for services. So how are we supposed to pay our water, food, electricity bill, and all that? Oh, that's right. It's supposed to fall under House Resolution 192. And we'll get that put up there with this, because this is the one thing that people need to comprehend, how these things are put together to protect you. And that's the one thing most people don't comprehend. And we are opening this up. These bankers and these big corporation people, you know, they rely on us so that way they could rake in the money. They rely on us because we're foolish enough to, even when we open a bank account, you don't need to open a bank account with a Social Security number. And that's the one thing that people need to comprehend too, because Social Security numbers really didn't exist until the 1900s. You know, people said, well, they had a Social Security number in the Civil War. I would like to see them. I've heard tale, but I haven't seen evidence. I don't go by hearsay. We can't do that in life. We have to have the evidence. The evidence speaks. So when you have the evidence, now you're talking facts. That's what we need, is facts. Facts are going to protect our bloodline. Facts are going to protect our children. And that is the point that people need to realize. That's what facts do. They protect you. Public structure or hearsay doesn't do anything. It goes back to what we all hear about, lies and information that others do. And it's like, it's very disturbing. I want to make it clear to everybody that the Constitution did have term limits for elected and public officials. I've sent this to the term limit organizations, the federal, the state, and all the ones on Facebook and the other ones that are in. And I try to explain the actual law, because the thing is that in 1778, September 17th, 1778, the first what they call legislative act or branch or whatever, when that came into existence, they set it up so House of Representatives, the numbers, we know what those are. We know that they can only do, by the terminology that was done back in the 1700s, they could only do 2 terms. If it's a 2-year term, that's 4 years. If it's 4-year terms, that's 8 years, and that's it. And there was never originally anything for retirement at all. That retirement structure didn't come in until the 1900s. And that's the one thing, is that public employees can't waive immunity by purchasing liability. Well, and that's the one thing is that you have to realize all government employees, cops, judges, and all them, they have no immunity whatsoever. A lot of these people pump out this information about how these men and women have immunity. They put up these court cases in the 1980s and 90s, but when you go back in real history, they have no immunity. It's already been proven in court cases prior, even in past. We have a court case of 2009 we put up that they have no immunity whatsoever. So that's the one thing that we need to push on that. And all these people that are claiming that they are judges and all this, you know, we want them to prove it. We want to see their certified paperwork says they are. If they cannot prove what they're claiming their title of nobility is, they don't have a right to even be talking to a lot of us. And a lot of these people follow these people that end up putting them in jail. Just like a lot of these people have been, like the Continental Marshals and judges and all this stuff. These other groups, all these guys have followed different people, thinking that they're going to be doing something wonderful and great, and then they find out that it's not as wonderful as they thought it was, because they found out that they were put in a position to be liable for somebody else's actions of what they thought was the truth, because most people do not do the research and structure of what goes on. You know, that's the one thing. People do not comprehend that fact that, you know, these men and women out there that are putting you in liability issues, you know, that's the one thing that we do is we educate ourselves on the facts. We do not want liability. We're not out here to claim liability for you. We're giving you information. You're a responsible adult. You're a responsible teenager. It's up to you to handle your responsibility. And so when you handle your responsibility, hey, things start turning out. When you know the laws of administration, what you're talking about, then things work. But you have to. You really need to know what's going on, the laws around you, the circumstances of those laws, and what the purpose of those laws are. Or statute codes and administrative rules. The Constitution is the law of the land, but a lot of people have statutes, codes, and administrative rules they want to proceed or push or put that on people so that these men and women in these corporation positions are guaranteed their job. And that's the one thing that you don't want to be able to do that. You want to be able to protect men and women. And that is the one thing. We're supposed to protect children. If we don't protect children, what's the purpose of this stuff? And that is the one thing that we want to make sure that men and women and the children are protected. But we have to know how to protect the children by the administrative rules that they put out and the Constitution. It's like your bloodline. You know, you have to know how to protect your bloodline. File and own your child. And if you register your child in a corporation, that's how the state can steal your child, because you're given authority over the state. And that's like the flag issue that we're dealing with. We want to know what the truth is of the flag. We have a right to know what the real structure of the flag is in these courtrooms, these public buildings, mainly in the schools. Why are they flying a foreign structure in our courtrooms, in our schools mainly? Our schools should not be apparent to these devil-worshipping structures. And people get upset at me because I go off with devil-worshipping, because I do a lot of different research than most people. So it is one of those things that is interesting, bringing these truths out. And that is the one thing that bringing the truth out is the beauty of the structure, so that way we know the truth. And you know the truth, because it's all for each one of us. We all have to work to know the truth. We all have to structurally know this stuff, like the 13th Amendment. What is the purpose of the 13th Amendment? What is the purpose of the 14th Amendment? And seeing that the 14th Amendment was actually never ratified, that is the one thing people need to research this stuff. Because your elected and public employees are going to drag you through the dirt because that's how they make their living. Rape, rob, and pillage. They love raping children. Another officer just got arrested Friday for inappropriate touching basically a young teenager in a lineup in a restaurant. You know, it took him a month to be arrested, but they finally arrested him for improperly touching a minor in a restaurant, groping or whatever you want to call it. You know, that is the saddest part. If the guy knew the kid, that who knows what the relationship is. And if the cop didn't know, or it doesn't matter, the cop has no authority even touching any male or female off the side anyways. That's the point that people need to comprehend. Public employees have no authority. The only authority they have is when you grant them that or when you agree to their terms. And the one thing that, you know, when first thing a cop starts opening his mouth to me, you know, I don't contract. And if you want a contract, I usually like to carry one with me, and then here's my contracts. I want to talk to you about this, that, and the other thing. A public servant will say, well, it doesn't matter what you want to talk to me about because you're not talking to me for me. You're talking to me so that way you can see how you can make a living off of me, how you kidnap and hold me for ransom. And that's the one thing that people got to remember. These men and women do that for their living and lifestyle. You know, they do it for themselves. And as soon as people start grasping the reality, and we're starting to see that people slowly are getting it. And I literally mean slowly getting it. You know, and that's the one thing that once we got this stuff, and we are putting the applications too, once we get the stuff on the flag finished up, we do want to be able to set it up so we can go after them. We want to make sure that we set it up so that way, and I don't mean set it up. We want to put the paperwork together so that way we have a template up so anybody who runs into this problem can react and deal with it immediately. And that is the one thing when, you know, it is one of those things that we have to do. You know, everybody keeps going, I need to hire an attorney. I watch all these people on talk shows, and I listen to some on the backgrounds, and I watch these things go all over Facebook and different things on the internet. We need to hire an attorney, and I keep asking these people, how come you're not willing to learn the statute, codes, and administration and Constitution? And I've actually had replies back from some going, we don't have time for that. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean you don't have time for that? That is a ridiculous thing that people do not comprehend. When they say they don't have time for that, you know, they're a joke. They're not taking the responsibility, and they're proving that they don't want their responsibility, don't want their bloodline and children. And then you got people say, well, if that's the way they feel, they shouldn't have it. Well, the way I look at it, sort of interesting, because a lot of people will say about religion, well, isn't that what God wants the child to go through? Isn't that God wants that child to go through that point of life? So if that's God's decision, well, that's God's decision. Of course, I don't believe in that stuff. I believe in the Creator and common sense of man. Oh, wait a minute. I said the devil's word, common. Because common sense is British structure that gives the British government rights over you. And that is the one thing that we don't want these public employees to have rights over us. And that's the one thing that is disturbing, because these public servants are claiming to the world that they have rights to you, to your children. And I'm you know, it's interesting because I get these pop-ups from people in England. I've had some different arguments the last week with people on the phone as well as on the internet trying to convince me that we are a religious British colony. And I've told these people that if you think that, how come you're not in England? Go to England. We are not. This is American. England and Spanish came to this country, raped and murdered the children. They raped and murdered the women of this country. And people go, well, the Bible was here first. No, it wasn't, folks. No offense to the religious people. But, you know, we've already had native structure in this country for decades before the natives even came in the 16th century. So, I mean, not the natives, I mean, the foreigners came in and started dictating to us how we're going to do these things for their beliefs. And so that's the one thing. I don't have a problem with somebody with their beliefs and their freedom of their religious belief, but their religious belief is not to be in our courtrooms, not to be in our city halls. And then when you go to certain capitals in the country today, they got so many satanic structures that is scary. When you really think about it, it's actually horrifying right now today of what's going on with the people, because a lot of these people believe these structures that they're being convinced of. And it is horrifying when you think about that these people are going by this structure and claiming these foreign beliefs, foreign religions, foreign structure. See, if we could start educating the children to believe that the Constitution is their religion, that the Constitution gives them rights, once they start comprehending that the Constitution gives them rights, not privileges, things start changing. Things will change rapidly. You know, once we get this thing out with the flag, because I'm going to start emailing that out here shortly, as soon as I get caught up here on a couple of things I'm trying to get caught up right now on that I'm working on as I'm doing this. But once we start getting caught up on these things and getting this stuff out, and we get this one on the flag out, and I'm really looking for this structure on the flag to get out. I'm really looking forward to responses. I am really looking forward to people bringing this forward, because we do this thing even in, you know, all these states that are going on, you know, Nevada, you know, Michigan, Arizona, you know, Florida and Ohio, and we got a lot of connections around that we're getting ready to put this out. So we're going to make sure that I get able to post it. Now, I can't post anything. When I do post this up on my Facebook walls and on my personal one, it will be done here in a little bit. But I can't post on Facebook. I was posting on some other pages earlier today after just being back on Facebook, after being knocked off and blocked off. So I just got back to getting back on late last night, and then this afternoon I got blocked again for Facebook because I put groups up that are not protecting the people, that are not doing anything. You know, structure with taxes and that, involved in that type of structure. And I did find more and more information that we are getting out. And so that you comprehend that when you are working for the state, technically, like I said earlier, the state can only make payments in gold and silver. That is the one thing. You want to bring this stuff. Do they tend to violate the law? And see, we want to put that in the writings. Do they plan on violating the law? I've put this in my own affidavits out to the county, the state, the general public, because I want people to read this. You know, we had an interesting primary, I guess, because I don't pay attention and watch elections, because I don't participate in elections. Because when you're a registered voter and participate in that, you are claiming that you are willing to pay their debts and their personal liability. And that even includes their personal liability for their own home. You got to remember, these men and women do not work. They were supposed to be working for you, me. That's their contract. And that contract literally goes all the way back to when the country started hiring public servants. That contract is part of the main structure of the main structure of what is that called? That contract is part of the main structure of our country for our employees. And that's the one thing that I have frustration with people at times. When they talk, you know, and they keep going, our government. Well, let me make it very, very clear to you. I am a member of our government when it comes to my birthright. We have elected and public servants. We don't have a government that's over us. Elected and public employees do. Immigration definitely does. So with immigration, you got to realize with immigration and stand up to immigration, that is the one thing, trying to get people to stand up to immigration, to stand up for their rights. It is a tough thing when it comes down to these things of how we're going to be handling these things. So it's like the main thing, like if you're having a child, how do you handle the child? How are you supposed to delegate and dictate to the responsibility of your child? But see, if you don't sit there and file your structure to claim your child, that's where people lose. You have to own your bloodline. And if you don't own your bloodline, you're giving authority to somebody else. And most people don't comprehend that that is a real structure. People don't comprehend, it's like with your children, the rights of parents. Parents have rights. The Ninth Circuit Court came out and proved that, and we got the evidence. We've shared that with people. And the one thing I would like to suggest to anybody, if you ever have a terrorist organization come into your life, like DHS mainly, which sort of stuns me how, people react to DHS, they whine, they cry, they say they can't do this, they can't do that, but then they give their children over to them. They refuse to file for their bloodline. They refuse to stand up for their children. And that's a lot of people do that. They actually literally do that today. They don't know how to stand up to their to the system. They're afraid to stand up because they think a cop has more authority than they do. Remember, a cop cannot bring you in his jurisdictions. We do bring that law up. It's posted in the weekly deal I post out for the talk show. It actually has the structure literally in it. With the structure, and that is the one thing to pay attention, is that it's figuring out the purpose of what we are to do. It's like what's going on in our country with the natives, Natives is not just Indian, because remember, there was other skin colors that were in here, this country, just as far back as the natives go. And that is the one point that once you realize that point and you get that, we need to stand up to these men and women. I mean, it's like, I've got a lot of friends of mine who are native, and it's like they get upset because, they get slammed in their reservations and stuff like that. And I try to explain to them, you got to file the paperwork on these terrorists. It's up to you to do it. Now, some of these men and women are doing it. Now, the other men and women around them are not doing it. They just don't want to be involved. They'd much rather just sit there and whine. And that, to me, is disturbing when people just sit there and whine, don't want to be responsible, don't want to be liable for their actions and bring the truth forward. And that's the other point when we get on this show. I mean, I like to read stuff out. I like to bring the evidence forward. So when people are bringing the evidence forward and the circumstances that we're dealing with, and people talk now, we got to separate what somebody is saying by hearsay, and we have to separate what somebody is saying by the evidence. So if people are not speaking of evidence, well, that's hearsay. So until people produce evidence in their conversation, that's hearsay. So I take it for hearsay when people talk to me when it comes to that. And you should too. I don't take anything for gospel. I don't even know what a gospel is. I mean, to me, I comprehend that gospel was storytelling when I grew up. That's what I was told by elders back in the late 60s and 70s. They would tell me, compared to the religious one I grew up with and then the ones non-religious in the family, and they would tell me gospel is stories and stuff like that. And I'm talking people back when in the 60s and 70s, and my elders were already in their 60s and 70s, well, actually 90s. A lot of them were in their 90s. But it's bringing those points out so we get to know what the truth is. And so either you file and own your child, you do the research. We're going to have more research because we're working on a few things right now that has been brought up in the circumstances of a newborn here. And so it is so we can put up eventually put up more instruments on it and put up a guideline. We're going to put up a general guesstimate, and we're going to put it's a guesstimate guideline. You take it for what it is. But we'll put up a guideline of information. And just remember that you are responsible and liable for your own actions. And once we can teach responsibility to the children as they're growing up, instead of teaching them excuses and how to get around it, I mean, that's the one thing I watch a lot of parents that will teach their kids about the system, to teach them how to get around the system, how to get out of the system. And that's the one thing we really don't want. We want to educate our children so that way they know what the system is, that they know the separation of democracy and a republic form of government. And once most of the kids really realistically comprehend that, you know, that they have to be responsible and for their actions. And once that is being taught, the kids we're not going to have all this crazy crap that people are going through. I mean, you know, all these so-called shootings, and I mean so-called. What's going on here? How many of these kids are on psychological medication, mind-altering drugs? How many adults are on mind-altering drugs? That is the one thing that adults have to deal with, too, on mind-altering drugs. It's like the doctor sat there recently and say, they're going after me because, and I've already done this. I got to work on my letter that I've got to work on for me, going after them. But the doctor sat there and said to me, well, you know, seeing that we're not going to give you pain medication. We know that you're severe pain. We know that your spine is crushed. We know all this stuff. But, you know, technically, basically what they told me is I'm supposed to die because I'm a burden that. And so they want to collect my birth certificate bond. And remember, the hospitals do get a percentage when you die on the birth certificate bond. And we do have evidence of that. I have put it in my writings from the system itself, how they divide stuff up. Because they do. Because if you go by Executive Order 2040 on the birth certificate structure, that when FDR put in the structure that when you have a child that's born, now you need to register it. You get a birth certificate number that gets registered to the Vatican, Roman Catholic Church. Remember, if you do your history, Roman Catholic. Yeah, and also too, Roman Catholic was part of Christianity originally until they split off. And that's the one thing when you do real history, you get to find out that the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity were one and the same, and they split off because the feuds that they were having, because they couldn't let the world know that they were the same. And when you do real history, and that's going back to the 12th century and 11th century, and you go back to the Christian Crusades, when you really read it with an open mind and read the words of what they're claiming, including what the Vatican even put out, you can read it. Don't interpret things like a judge or a lawyer does. Your job of life is not to interpret. Because when you interpret, you make up things. You know, that's like the group that will sit here and start at one end of a group of people, and by the time it comes back to the circle, nobody knows what it really means. And that's what you're doing right now with opinions. You know, sometimes judges and attorneys' opinions have salt, and sometimes they don't. But you do have to take opinions with a grain of salt. Like opinions are like diapers, need to be changed regularly, and they do that regularly in the system. And that's why what I brought up, like the state of Oregon. And each state has it where it says that the states have to pay in gold and silver. They even have it in the system, too, which I've done the research that I was blessed had somebody pointed out to me, that all the states dealing with finances you can't pay with the federal notes, and you can't even pay property taxes with federal notes. You can't pay anything with federal notes. That's why we are working to set things up on, the utility commission, so that way when you get your water and electricity bill, you're supposed to autograph sign it under House Resolution 192. It does exist. People will tell you, oh, no, it don't exist. I've heard this from people before. House Resolution 192 truly does exist. It is a reality. It was part of the bankruptcy, and this is one thing that people got to realize when they put Executive Order 2040 in place of the Bankruptcy Act. The British government went bankrupt to we the people of this country. We the people back in the bankruptcy of 1933 didn't go bankrupt to the British government, because not only that, back then nobody had credit cards, nobody had the structure at all to even be implemented in that fantasy of that structure. Literally, there was no such thing as credit cards and debit back then. You know, some people back then in the early 1900s to the 1970s, including all the way, well, even today, I know this for a personal fact. Some people still have what they call house credits in business. And so that's what keeps us afloat is house credits too, with a business. You know, or debt when you go in and sign, you know, for your stuff and you owe the guy or the woman's corporation because, you know, they're kind enough to work with you. You know, there's some things that, you know, what I bring out that you utilize with the Public Employees Union and the corporations of the government, but don't take some of this and go after, you know, people in local businesses and stuff like that saying, well, I don't have to pay the bill because the law says this. Well, you know, it really disturbs me about people like that. They do that to go get away with rape, robbing, and pillaging, no different than elected and public servants. You know, if you don't get involved in stuff you can't pay, especially with your friends and family. Don't do it. Borrowing money is a dangerous deal. I mean, I believe in the old structure, you know. When people borrow money, well, you take on the responsibility that happens when you don't pay. But when it comes to the corporation, we're supposed to be covered under 192, and I've got the certified copy. And that's the one thing I didn't get a chance to bring out last night. Excuse me. But we have a certified copy from Congress, the Library of Congress, 2012, where the Library of Congress certified House Resolution 192. Some of House Resolution 192 was repealed in 1979. But the debt structure that the British government owes us is still in place, and that's why we're supposed to autograph our alleged bills, water, electricity, and basic food. Doesn't mean you go out and get a Mercedes-Benz or a mansion. Some people have done that, and people end up in jail. And that's what we're trying to do, or we're not trying. We're working on it. So that way, we're working on this point so that way we're not trying to put anybody in liability. I'm not going to go out there and try to set somebody up to go to jail. I'm not like some of these other people. Oh, give me $1,500 and I'll get you out of the system. $500, I'll get you out of the system. You know, I can do the same thing, charge you $500 basic. I can charge you $100 to get you out of the system. I can get you out of the system for $100. But I want you to educate yourself. But the other point is that we sort of look at those people that when you are getting educated along the road, you know, it does cost to keep the website up and some of our basic structures if people have the kindness of their heart. See, that's what I tell people, you know. People tell me, oh, Ed, you need to believe in Christ and you need to believe in Jesus and you need to believe in the Bible. Well, all right, prove it to me. People all the time that say all this stuff, and then when you help them, you get them out of jail, you do this, you protect their families. And then when it comes to you, they look at you and go, thank you, and then they run. But then they want you to help them pay their bills, and then when you help them, then they turn their back on you, and then you never get anything. You get them out of jail, you know. Oh, well, it would be nice if you have a kindness of your heart and throw something on a water or phone bill, electricity bill. You know, that's the one thing, you know, I suggest to people, you know, if you owe somebody something, pay their bill. Don't give it to them in cash so that way the corporation devil people can't try to come after you through taxes. I do stay away, and I do suggest people to stay away from tax write-offs. I suggest people don't even file with the IRS myself because I wouldn't, because you're giving authority. I don't care what these people say about 40X, 1099s, and all this shit. You know, I mean, walk away from it. Start a new structure in the system. Because if they want to come back after you for taxes, you go, hey, for the last 10 years, you never paid me back mine. And you produce the evidence. Then you can go after and sue them. It's like with the flag. We want the evidence so that way when the shit hits the fan further, we have the evidence to prove that these men and women of their own words. I'm getting ready to put another affidavit as soon as I get the one flag done here tonight, and I will get it done sometime tonight because I'm going to be having it emailed to the House and Senate myself to each and every one, and most of the cities and counties administration by Tuesday, well, let's say Wednesday. Throughout the entire state of Oregon, I'll have every county and every city serve that to the mayor, city council. I will have every House and Senator and representative serve that. And I know these guys are freaking out because, you know, when we're asking this, and some senators and House of Representatives do have honor. They will respond, and the ones that respond, remember, you know, it doesn't matter if they're trying to twist it like Bill Mays did in California, Congressman Bill Mays did, but you have to respect the man. And I do plan on calling Bill Mays' office probably Monday or Tuesday and thank him for that letter, because I'm asking him to send me a certified copy too myself of his own letter. Because part of it was right, part of it skirted around, but you have to give him the 50-50 deal because he comprehended that when he wrote that letter, he comprehended the dangers of what he did. See, this is the one thing that people don't comprehend, how some elected and public servants know what they're doing, and when they go into these positions, they do fight for your rights. They do argue for you, but you also, too, cannot sit there and tell others that when you do that, you know, tell others that you don't need to protect them or stuff. Because this is supposed to be about we the people in this country, we, the lawful bloodline Americans. I am not for immigration, 100%, absolutely no. I do not support immigration whatsoever because our country has already been raped, robbed, and pillaged for the last 350 years by domestic and foreign terrorists that came over. And that's the one thing, you know, it's like Michigan. Is it Michigan or Montana? Michigan. Oh, yeah, Muslim country now. You people destroyed this country by allowing those people in this country. You know, that's the one thing that Jefferson stopped immigration of Muslims because all they do is rape, rob, and murder, and they lie. I have never met a Muslim in my life that was honorable. Never. And I grew up in a big city. Been around a lot of religions and structures all my life for 40 years. So, and I'm not out there being a hypocrite when it comes down to it. I just tell the truth. But the thing is that we have to be respectful and honorable when we do these things. So when it comes down to your birth certificate, file and own you. Challenge the state. Challenge the state corporation if they own you. Me and Dave Lee Buse, we put out a letter in 2015 to the entire, the federal, state, and federal coroners and to the state administration, and I did it to Congress as well, each congressman. That was, I don't know, I spent like $400 in mailing that deal. No, it's about $400 to $500 for the copies and the mailing, certified. And we were asking them if we were alive or dead. Can they prove the birth certificate was redone or not? You know, we never got a response, but we know that people were panicking when they read it because we wrote it by their own administrative rules. I know. I did the research myself. I know. I'm the one who put the letter together, besides Dave. Me and Dave put this letter together, and we put it out going after them to prove if we were alive or dead. How do they rechange the birth certificate for the financial gain to kill one for the other? Which they do. They change the numbers on these things. So that's why when you do this, it's like with me, I have identity theft filed on my birth certificate as well as my Social Security number. Social Security number under Title 42408, Section D. It's a criminal offense to give your Social Security number out even to a bank or employment. And we do have this stuff on banks. You don't need a Social Security number to get a bank account. They just want your Social Security number so they can transfer your funds from wherever you were born in that county to that county that you're in now so they can rebounce back electronically, so that way they can take your funds that you're supposed to get the interest off. So FDR wrote it. It's all in Executive Order 2040. It's on how you actually read administrative rules. And that's what we want to do, is educate ourselves to read administrative rules, to read statute codes, and we have to know the Constitution law. And everybody goes, well, law is statute codes of administration. Well, that's true, but that's true. There is a thing called Constitution law, not constitutional list. Say, that's the one thing. The Constitution in the Constitution of the United States doesn't say Constitutional List of the United States. And Constitutional List is what the FBI and the corporation came up with, a new deal, trying to put you as a classification as what they call sovereign citizen. Well, and if you ever get chalked out by a cop, he goes, you're a sovereign citizen, and bring back, well, is that the sovereign citizen of a large C that's lawful American, or a small c corporation of the 14th Amendment? It's in the 14th Amendment, actually written that way. We've got the evidence. I've even got the congressional record where the 14th Amendment was never ratified. Congressional records, it was passed administratively, never ratified. I've just proven that to a couple people here a couple days ago that were trying to argue with me. It was ratified, and so I had to send them the congressional record pages, and I said, prove it. Well, that's the one thing, is that, that's the whole point, is going by facts. A wise man says, get it certified. Wise man says, use their words. They wrote it, quote it. See, that's the one thing about this. And there's a lot of wise men out there. And listen, what people are doing and when they're talking to you, but the most important thing of it all, do your research. Prove what one man or one woman is saying. Also, too, the main point, stay away from the word person. Person is an inanimate object that does not exist. Read the Bovary in the Black Law Dictionary. It clearly states it. It's an inanimate object. That's like the terminology, U.S. 1, Section 8. Child is not alive. You cannot argue abortion to any woman. Once that child, it comes out and sees the light, smells the air, doesn't matter, whatever the way it comes out, once it screams, it's alive. Otherwise, it's a parasite in a woman that's just a blood-sucking tick. Too bad we can't be honest about things, and we got to go through, men have been so broken down in the last 25 years over emotions, and women controlling emotions, controlling men through emotions. It's sad that we're not living life as what life was intended for men and women, to work with each other. And that doesn't matter if you're gay or lesbian. You have to do the same damn thing, work with each other. I don't support that, but, they have a constitution right of their religious belief, and if that's their religious belief, well, keep it in your bedroom. We don't want to see it on the street corner or on the parks. You want respect. I grew up in San Francisco. The gays never flaunted it out in the street. Haight-Ashbury days, I remember literally in the late 60s and 70s and 80s, Haight-Ashbury. We had friends and family that were gay. I used to go down there in the 70s and 80s. So, and even in the parks down there in the Golden Gate Park at the end, when they're in the Golden Gate Park and then you go further down into Haight-Ashbury area, and all of a sudden they have the other city park there that's 2.5, I think it was 2.5 square blocks. Nah, it's 4 blocks. The way it goes down. And then the gay and lesbians are out there. They didn't sit there and, flaunt it out in front of everybody like, Pelosi and all these mentally challenged people are doing today. Where's the respect that these men and women once had for themselves? How come they're not taught that today? Oh, they're taught that because of TV. We got to go out and yell on the street corner. We've got to the point where once upon a time we actually had respect and honor in this country. And there's a lot of us that still do. But then we got this handful that the media likes to go propagate for their financial gain. Because remember, if the media can't make a lie up and make a story out of it, you know, we've got, how many times has even the local media been caught, your local media been caught making up fabrications to sell papers? So that's the saddest point. I mean, even politics, you know, you got to buy an ad. Trust me, I've been in politics one way or the other. I ran for office. You know, I remember clearly until basically 2000s, the year 2000, we never paid for real ads. It was always called the public service announcements. The radios and newspapers and the advertising company would do a public service announcement, and then on their IRS tax form, because they're a corporation, they would write it off, and they actually got it deducted. Then the IRS says, oh, we're not going to deduct that anymore. And it's like they're still supposed to by their own rules. You know, that was the one thing that was interesting, having some of these rules read of the IRS. I'm waiting on a few more, and if a gentleman wants to speak on that again, read the rules of the IRS, that's a warm welcome tonight. But that's the whole point. You got to welcome these things. We've got to work with these things so that way our children are not being lied to. Our children know how to survive. You know, I mean, children today, I mean, you know, even 10 years old don't know how to gut a fish, scale a fish. 15-year-old kids don't know how to, you know, gut an elk or a deer. So, you know, everybody says, oh, the world's going to end tomorrow. How are your bloodline going to survive if you didn't educate them and teach them how to survive if it comes down to it? You know, it's really sad because other countries in this world are actually selling human body parts in the grocery stores. Cannibalistic. It's a fact, folks. Some of your restaurants today, some of your food in the stores today have human meat in the food. Do your research. Type in the definition and explanation of human meat. You'll see a whole bunch of lists of different things they call human meat that they put in the products. You know, eventually we'll get that put up. I got to get the rest of the research. I did all that at one point, had it all. I got to go find it. We'll get that up on the website. So you can see what words mean human meat that's in certain products. You know, some of restaurants even grind it in their damn hamburgers and stuff. And this is true. I mean, you know, it is true. And that's the one thing that we are living in today, in a confusion. You know, it's like, do you own your child? Have you filed ownership of your child? I always suggest to people before your child is born, file it before the child's born. You can't put a name or anything on it, but you're putting the structure of the male and female ownership of owner. Oh, never use ship. Because you use ownership, you give mandatory your rights over to the state attorney general because you're claiming you're a ship, a vessel. Never claim to be a vessel. You claim to be a vessel, you have no rights. That's the 14th Amendment. Read it. Read the original 14th Amendment by Congressional Act in Congress before it was even passed. These men and women knew this stuff back then. You got to remember, most of your senators and congressmen back in the 1700s, 1800s, most of them were for Spain and England besides the natives here. Remember, Congress was set up by foreigners. Hey, what a reality check, huh? They weren't Americans that all set up all that stuff. But they were foreigners that came from England and Spain that knew what religion did to them in their countries. They knew what the kings of their countries did to them, and they didn't want to live that for their children. So, I mean, it's like looking back into history and analyzing these people. Think about why, what, why, and how. When people try to explain things to me, it's like, you have to try to imagine going back in 1750 how rough reality really was, because you didn't have running water, electricity, or the convenience we have and the blessings we have today. No way did they have back then. But you have to think about it. If you were walking, 10 miles somewhere and you became real hungry or thirsty, you had to find water if you didn't pack your food or water with you. So it's not like today where you could drive down the street and go to any, grocery store or restaurant or on-store market on the highways or farms that are opened up on the highways and grab something. Back then, you didn't have that. Sometimes you didn't even see food for a couple days when you're traveling, unless you knew the forest in which you could eat by, mushrooms or ferns or different things. And if you never had baby ferns when they're coming up, sauteed with a little butter and a touch of sherry. Oh, the tips are wonderful, and those are good. That's the one thing that was a blessing when I worked in gourmet restaurants. I was able to have a lot of foreign structure. Alligator and rattlesnake is good too. People say, "Oh, it tastes like chicken." Yeah, not exactly. The texture is like chicken, but we'll leave it that way. The rest of it, has a unique flavor. Trust me, possum has a unique flavor. It really does. Yeah, and if you don't clean skunk out right, oh my God, I wouldn't eat it. But I've eaten skunk myself, but it was cleaned right. Never learned how to clean a skunk right myself, but I've had it where somebody knew what they were doing. But these are things that we live with today. How do we solve these problems? How do you own your child? How do you claim the assets to your land, your property? And when you talk, it's your property. People say, well, your child, my child is mine. It is not the government. And I remember growing up when people would say, well, if you treat your kid this way, the state's going to kick. And I remember parents would tell their kids all the time, you keep it up, I'm going to send you to the state. I'll give you the state. Of course, sometimes that works on kids where it puts them in line. Sometimes it don't. The kids make it worse. So, you have to put up or shut up. And remember, these kids know this stuff. They are brought up this way. They get it from TV, radio, their friends and neighbors. All this structure and stuff is nothing new. It really happens. So when it comes down to your children, we're going to be Saturday. I plan on getting more out there. We do plan on having Mr. Beecraft back on here. And he's a lawyer. We know he's a lawyer, but sometimes it is education to get the other side as well. We both know what's going on. We all know what's going on, but we have to listen to the other side too, what they do, because how do we become successful? Oh, listening, paying attention, being responsible. That's how we become successful. Rape, robbing, and pillaging, like most public employees do, is not successful. And so we'll be putting up a template. I'll be finishing up a template for traffic tickets. I decided I'll do one for traffic tickets. So when you go in and they want you to pay a fine or stuff, that way you can turn a letter in and ask them what money they want you to pay in. So, and then refer to them. And then also, too, in that letter I'll put in, we'll ask the judge how much gold and silver is he being paid for his employment. Seeing that the state administrative rules and federal administrative rules, that goes back to the military, the Army, dealing in the 1850s, have to pay in gold and silver. And that goes to the courts, that goes to any other government job, because until the Bankruptcy Act went through, it wasn't until 1940 administrative rules when they stopped paying in gold and silver to all elected and public employees and started issuing them what they call a draft note from a bank, and technically by law or even Oregon state law says you can't pay debt or anything with a draft note. It's only the ones that could do that is banks going back and forth, or the corporation itself, government corporation itself, doing that. We the people cannot technically participate in those type of structures because we are not the corporation government. We are the people government. There is a total separation of legal and rights. So anyhow, I've been going on for about an hour. We're going to open up the floor, see anybody's got any comments and contacts on what we're going to do. And then for those on Facebook, like I said, I'm blocked posting right now, so I can't post this stuff up. I will be posting stuff on people's personal Facebook walls on the flag until they kick me off from that. I'll start doing that tonight and the next couple of days, but I'm going to do that in a slow fashion. Most of them I'll email to you, so those friends list that I got, message me or email, because I'd much rather email it to you instead of going that route. So this way, we get this out. I mean, this is the point that I watch all these groups going, we need, CPS or DHS reform. I get tired of these people who are not educated, who can't comprehend it. Oh, we need a class action lawsuit. Wake up, people. Quit living in religious beliefs of a court system that's running your life. And when you go back in the structure, because the court systems go all the way back to the Christian Crusades, because don't forget, the popes and the monks were the ones who decided who got punished. I have a cartoon that I put up that I think we have on Oregon Trackers. If not, I will get it posted on the front page, where you can definitely see where the cop brings in a guy for a moving violation. And the judge looks at that guy and goes, hey, don't you realize that the Pope and we judges are one and the same? And they are. Do real history. Because in all the past history, religious popes and ministers were the ones who passed judgment. There was no real courtrooms in the world. It was all religion until the last 150, 200 years. It was all religious courts all across the world. So as I suggest to people, do your history. And then we get convinced that these courts are there for us when they're religious courtrooms. And we do have the statute codes and administrative rules and can't prove it. We've proven it. I've written articles. I've even put them, the New York Times has actually, 5, 6 years ago, published one of my 2-page deals in the New York Times on it, which shocked the daylights out of me. Some of these people, some of these newspapers will flip things through, because they know that it depends on what time of the year or different things that they know people are going to pay attention to more of something else in the paper than they will if they slip something through. And sometimes the papers do slip some things that are really interesting through. So it's paying attention and learning how the papers operate and the times of years when they're able to actually put something through without being assaulted or attacked or fined. And it is disgusting when the FCC is going after and fining people. So I say, okay, they want to fine your corporation. Ask them to prove how they want you to pay the fine. Don't forget, you can always type in Montgomery Ward's coffee beans. Because in the 1980s, that's when I went into Montgomery Ward's in Terra Linda, California. I just got out for my certification as a mechanic. And I went to go to Montgomery Ward's to get a job. I was told by a friend of mine, they had a job opening, go put your application in. So 2 weeks later, I went in and put my application in, the manager, and I knew the manager because I used to sit there and roller skate with him at the roller skating rink. Went in, and I said, hey, so-and-so, Steve told me to put in my application. He goes, sorry to tell you, I just got my notification. We're going to be terminated in 60 days. Nobody knew why. Neither did he, but he just told me, and I didn't know about that until, I don't know, it was probably about 10, 12 years ago when I finally heard about the coffee bean case. And so, a dollar bill is valued at one coffee bean is what a judge said. And that's exactly how Gene, and look up the case, and if you don't got it, email me. I just sent it out to some other people here in the last couple of days. Read it. It's interesting because they valued coffee bean as $1. Value is $1. And under 28USC 411, you can't pay debt with debt. That's a federal crime. You could actually go to jail for that. But they don't do that because I'll explain the actual reason, factual reason why. It's simple. Everybody says we have a national debt. Well, every time you write a check, every time you pay a debt note, pass a debt note, the national debt goes up, and that's how come the national debt goes up is because of the corporation dollar bill to pass that back and forth, and it's a fiat debt. Read it. It says it right on it. Debt note. It's a note. So, it's interesting and blissful when you start learning all this stuff. And this is stuff that I believe actually should be starting to be taught in 6th grade in schools. The stuff that a lot of us know right now today, this should be started to be taught in 5th and 6th grade in schools, mandatory. Because that way the kids won't be as screwed up as we went through, and before we started opening our eyes and started going, holy manoli, this is the way it really is. And then you realize that the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and Easter and all that don't exist. It's all for monetary gain for the corporations. It's what they were set up. Remember, Christmas was founded in 1842. London, England, Macy's department store. That's where you got your Macy Day parades from. You know, read the foundation of Christmas right from Macy's department store itself. It's in factual history. You know, they had to come up with ways of doing sales because they didn't have sales in the winter time in England. So they came up with that way called Christmas. And this is all in history. You know, all in real history. And then you got different religions that will claim Santa Claus goes back to the 12th century. Well, yeah, it was somebody giving gifts. It had nothing to do with anything. It was somebody that was giving gifts that were doing the same thing that you do today to your kids today on Easter and Christmas and holidays. So anyhow, let me open up the floor. Shut up for a minute. Let's see what we get on the conversation on the other side.
All participants are unmuted.
I know people are there. Hello? Okay. Well, I hear breathing. Are you going to speak up or not? Okay. Well, I guess people don't want to speak up tonight. So, just for those that, you know, I know you got those emails that what you guys asked for, so those went out yesterday and today. So I got that, and then I got to start diving in and do the one on my bank, and I got to do the one on my medical coming up as soon as I get the email for the flag out, and then we got another one that we're talking about that we'll bring up next week. Oh, excuse me, on another structure we want to participate to get out to the Senate and House members. You know, I mean, and that's the one thing. I don't want to go after the House and Senate members on how to pay shit. I want to go after them with the flag. I want to go after them for their driver's license. I want to go after them, you know, and different things like this. Once we start getting them opening up and we start getting the letters of feedbacks on these things, you know, this is how we're going to succeed. All these people come up with, oh, we need an attorney. We need a class action lawsuit. We need this. We need. Everybody says need. I need to go out in the woods and the forest. I need my forest not to be cut down by these terrorists that are cutting it down and selling our timber to foreign countries. They've been doing for 200 years, packing on boats. I mean, the big thing, China and Japan, for 14 years that I'm personally aware of, has bought over 4 billion board feet of our timber on the west coast here and sunk it in their bays. Because they know we're not going to be having wood like them, and they know that they can sell it to us for a gold mine. So you got to remember that some of these people think, even for their own bloodline, 4, 5, or 6 generations, how are they going to be able to keep their bloodline existence, their castle going, their structure? You know, I mean, people are not all as dumb as some of these people that are coming out of school today that are not paying attention and not educated. I mean, in Oregon, we've got the worst education system in the country, in the world. And I personally know this. They dumb kids down so stupid today, it's amazing. And I personally know this because in 2002, I personally recalled the entire school board and proved they embezzled $30 million. And we had an estimate of 150, but we could prove $30 million that Lincoln County School Board pocketed. The district attorney, Bernice Burnett, was involved in that pocketing. That's why they keep going after me, you know, because they know I've proven this stuff. I did the research. They didn't like it because I was on the local school committee until, what was her name? She's acting governor, terrorist governor right now. Kate Brown was part of the bill that passed to eliminate the school districts for local school committees members, because local school committee members had lawful authority over the school board. The school board could not ask for finances statements. The school committee members could ask for financial statements and everything that were provided to them. I used to walk into schools all the time at lunchtime because kids would call me up and tell me the crap they were feeding them. So I'd walk in, and sometimes I'd walk into kitchens of the school district, and I would have to go after them, basically close them down. And then every time I started going into the school district, the schools, they would call the cops on me every time. Ed Johnson's here to school. Cops would show up. Ed, you can't be here. I'm not a school committee member. Well, they don't want you. I don't give a shit what they want. They're an employee just like you. Oh, no, I've been blunt. I've been there. I've lived it, done it. Well, I mean, at one point there was hundreds of pages on the internet about me, and they've deleted a lot of stuff off the internet over me, what I've done for 35 years. Well, I mean, even some of the bills that I've been involved with and got killed and passed. And yes, you can collect rainwater. It's learning how to talk to your public servants. Everybody collects rainwater. It rains on your property, you own it. You know, you have to remember, it's your soil. Okay? It comes from the Great Spirit, or if you believe in your God or God that, you know, can't argue there because you have the right by the Constitution, just like I do. But God or the Great Spirit, the Creator, gave you that rain. That's to prevent and for your family, for you to live. So when you talk to your public employees and they start talking code, so in other words, you're not allowed to have water. So can you give me your address so I can file on you for your water system that you got from the city? Because if you're telling me I can't get God's water, then that means you don't have a right to pay for water to live. Oh, what was that? Nestle's corporation president says water is a privilege, not a right. But you got to remember, these people do say that you have a privilege to eat. Oregon, don't come to Oregon if you're not in Oregon now. Do not come to Oregon. Because in the state of Oregon, if you are mentally retarded, disabled, elderly, in any state hospital, any state system, they passed administrative law this year, February. They can starve you to death, literally murder you in these facilities. It's not a joke, folks. They want that birth certificate money. They will murder you. They've been trying. I've been blessed. They've tried on me many times, but and there's videotapes on YouTube with them pointing guns at my head. Anyhow, I've been through all this stuff. But the thing is, you can't be afraid in life. You know, grab the bull by the horns and go for the ride. That's all you can do. If you go around with fear, we all end up teaching that to the children, and the children don't learn how to stand up in respect and responsibility. How do we expect the children to have any future? So just some thoughts. So, but next week I want to get heavy into some of the productions or the produce of the system in the hospital, inside the hospital. I got to do some research on that. We want to get that out. I'm watching some of these parent groups on Facebook and the internet, and it's like these guys, all of them don't want to learn. They're all going, pray to God we could get a class action lawsuit. Pray to God we could do this, and it's like, you can pray all you want, but until you get off your butt and stand up and start maneuvering and walking and writing those papers, God can't help you unless you help yourself. You know, the Creator cannot do that unless you help yourself. So if you're not willing to help yourself and others, at least passing information around, because we do pass lawful and legal stuff around, or it depends on which way you look at lawful administrative rules or the Constitution, statute codes and administrative rules. And remember, when each state, Florida, Oregon, Texas, California, Utah, Idaho, Washington, when they pass what they call bills, remember a bill is to hand you a bill for you to pay. They copyright it, so it's their bill. That's their copyright, not mine. And that's the other letter that eventually we want to get a couple more out here in the next couple months. And then we'll be putting up a letter out there to ask them what is the law that makes you conform to their statute codes and administrative, what do they call that? Copyright bill. So, but first we want to get some more evidence built up and more stuff going on. We are getting it slowly built up by others. We'll be putting it on the website because I got to figure out the website next year or two because we got one more year. I mean, I prepaid it for a few years, but after when they stole all my money, tried to assassinate me, and then stole my money out of my account last month, and did that. So basically, I'm just grateful I was able to float this month, literally. And so, I know that they're not, I know they're not liking what I'm doing because the truth is coming out by us, we the people. It's not me, it's you. All of us, we're doing it. So it's not Jesus Christ, it's not God, it's you. Look in the mirror. You men and women are responsible for educating your children. You men and women we are being responsible to protect our bloodline and our country. So we are doing it. It's like our forefathers when they fought in the Revolutionary War, the Spanish War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Mexican War. Men and women went and fought and gave their lives for our rights today that we have. So let's make sure we can pass the education and knowledge of the facts of our rights to the children so that way they can pass it to theirs without being forced into slavery. That's just, we're doing it. It's happening. We're seeing changes. You're seeing administrative changes. So when we're seeing administrative changes slowly happening, we've got to back these men and women up that are doing it too. So anyhow, saying that I don't see anybody that has spoke up and said, let me speak. So I'll try one more time. Does anybody else like to throw anything in?
Oh, shit.
What about oh shit? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that, why don't go ahead.
Say, I want to remind you the Republic of Texas, the people that send in letters, including myself, to the lady up there and the judge, the Chief Justice, Washington, D.C. Keep on sending those letters, they'll send a letter back to you. No, we don't have any jurisdiction in the IRS. Then you take it to tax court. There's like 676 of us and done it so far.
Right.
Anyway, they got a talk Tuesday night at 7:30 our time, Texas time, Central Time.
Right.
You might want to listen to it or somebody else. It's how to do it. It's really pretty simple.
Well, did you ever send me what you guys put out?
I sent you and some documents was piggybacked on it. You may have so many emails. I'll send you another one.
Oh, yeah. Send me one with just that. Send it to me twice.
Okay.
And seeing that you guys have already got something that you're moving on, we could put that up and back you up.
Okay. And on your website, The Man That Talked Last Night, where's that at on your website? Did you post it? His website.
And which one?
The Man That Talked Last Night.
Larry B. Craft. Oh, yeah. We'll get his posted up. We're working on getting a lot of his cases up. We're setting up a structure just for basically attorneys that we'll have on with their opinions. But, yeah, I'll get that to you. And also, too, you can type in Lowell, Lowellb Craft, and he's in Alabama, and his office and everything comes up.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
So Lowell B. Craft is where he is on the internet. And when I get a chance, I'll email you that here in a little bit, too.
Okay.
So you'll have that. But, yeah, please send me that. Seeing that you've already got that one going for the IRS on that. And then we got the IRS code, too, that we're going to be getting out. So we don't want to get it out to them. But I like what you mentioned, how you did it with the situation in Washington D.C. and we all need to do that.
Yes.
So,
literally, a 10-year-old can do it. Literally, a 10-year-old, an elementary student can do this. Send a letter, send a letter, send a letter. Finally, when you get the...
Well, that depends on how the education of that elementary school was brought to.
Let's not get technical here. It's only 2 sentences. Anyway.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I know. But yeah, send me that. We'll get that out, and then we'll get a link put up on somewhere on the new.org and trackers. We'll put something up on that, and we'll get that out.
Okay. Thank you.
No, this is the whole point, that we're all working together. See, this is the beauty about Americans. That's why it says "we the people." So
yes.
As soon as you give me that, I'll get that information out. And I sent you I sent you the coffee bean case too, didn't I?
You may have. I've been looking at some doctors.
Okay, well, I'll just pass it to you here and message here in a while.
Okay. PDF in the PDF form helps a lot if you put it on your Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I got you. It'll be in the PDF.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I have. I put the coffee bean case in a PDF file. Yeah, and I like the gentleman that actually had it on his site. He could boost his own site up anytime he wants to speak. But I do thank him for having that out there because, like I said, 10 or 12 years ago is when I misplaced it. And then I lost it on another computer last year that I was attacked by a computer by a few other circumstances. And I knew who was doing it. That was the saddest part because male stupidity took a play in that one. Yeah, you learned a lesson. Never trust anybody with your paperwork or trust anybody with your computer.
Don't ever let anybody use your computer also.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. You don't know what people are going to add, change, or download in it.
That's right.
That is the scary thing. So, anyhow, anybody else would like to add anything? Okay, well, we're almost to the bottom of the hour. We're about, 6:15, something like that. So, I guess we'll just call it short tonight, and then we'll get the other stuff for next Saturday together, because I do want to go through some of the stuff. I've been talking to people that have gone through situations in the hospitals here, and I do want to bring that up to the general public, some solutions. And remember, especially if you're going through something like that, always don't kiss ass, just be considerate and polite. Stand your ground, but always be polite.
Ed?
Yeah.
I got one more. Do you want this phone number now and the code to get on it in case somebody's listening wants to hear it Tuesday night? It's 7:30 my time.
Oh, for the program Tuesday night, why don't you tell everybody about the program for Tuesday night and give it out?
Okay, here's the area code, 605-472-0645, and the access code is 583966, and that little pound sign.
Right. And what's the purpose of this?
This is where a group of us send those letters out, and you can actually, a couple of guys that's ramrodding it with the Republic of Texas, you can get online. If you want them to say, well, let's get online here with the U.S. by, send another letter. Keep on doing it. I mean, milk it old 3-tit cow like she got 4 tits. Keep on doing it. And when you get the letter, you take it to the U.S. tax court, and then they will give you an order that you don't pay taxes anymore and you're out of the IRS.
Yep.
Oh, there's a third part. you can get your money back. Generally speaking, it's best to use about 10 years. All the taxes that you paid the last 10 years.
Yeah,
But
1040X form.
I was talking last week. Now it's every other. It says the second and fourth Tuesday. There's one man in there. He wanted to go back to 1955, and they're still working on that. He wants a refund on all his taxes. But there's people in there that there's one lady and her husband, they could not sell their land for 5 years, and they got that letter, got released from it. Then there's another lady on there. She is crying. She said, I just got my letter back, and the U.S. Tax court judge signed a letter, and I saved $156,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Yep. There are solutions to this, people. Even there's a form 4029 or 42909, and that's Social Security. You can opt out of Social Security and Medicare and all that, and not be part of their program. Because remember, when William Jefferson Clinton signed, what was that, June 3rd, 1997, signed the payee of the employer over to the Queen of England, that's when Social Security administratively changed. And if you were born before that and you have a contract with Social Security before that, they have the money, and they are $6.9 trillion in reserve. So don't let them tell you they have no money. Go into Social Security, into the main deal, and find the reserve deal, and they have the actual reserve funding in there. They don't want you to know about it. They won't tell you how to get there, but they Social Security, what was it? Congress just borrowed or stole just $2.9 billion of Social Security funding, but we do have almost basically $10 trillion in reserve. And I posted that up last year with a video from Social Security itself when they came out to Congress and admitted their reserve. So, I mean, don't let these people, I mean, you got a lot of people out there who want to put fear in you, and you know, it's sad. So once you get that to me tonight, I'll get that the press release, and we'll get that out.
Okay.
So, and then Tuesday night, don't forget, folks, and why don't you give the number and password again?
Let me pull it back up.
Oh. Okay, we got to pull it back up. I wrote it down. 605-472-0648. Or 45. I don't have my specs on me, darn it. Hang on a minute.
Just bear with me. I got to pull it back up. I run two computers and two laptops at the same time, as well as an iPad.
Okay, let me go over here and grab my specs. Because that's a good one, what he's talking about. Send it to the Chief Justice and let him respond.
No, it's a her.
Oh, her. Which one you talking about? Connors?
No, another one.
Oh, okay. All right, let me say that number again. It's 605-472-0645. And the code is 583966#. Tuesday. And by the way, what time is that your time?
7:30. Texas
So it's 6:30 on the Oregon coast.
No, yeah.
Hey, Ed?
Yeah.
Send me that number, please.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. I will definitely do that.
And I'm sending you another present tonight.
Oh, I like presents. And I hate to say it, I still think I owe you a case of Pepsi, don't I?
And dinner.
Oh, and dinner. I didn't throw that in. Now you're bringing that one in now. I know how those things work. Oh God, I gotta have fun with this. How far is McDonald's from you? I know, that was bad. So, all right, yeah, I'll get that number to you and that. And what's the name of the group? Is there actually a name of the group?
Yeah, it's Republic of Texas.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find that thing. I lost it.
Oh, I got the number. I just read it out because I wrote it down when he said.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we got that correct. So yeah, that's another one we do that. And when you get that from the tax, go ahead. Okay. Well, when you get that from the tax court too, that eliminates your property tax because property tax is an income tax the same way as the rest of them are. There is no separation. There is no difference. So all right. Well, we got that resolved tonight. We're putting more and more things forward and getting more and more things together. I'll get that put out. Does the Republic of Texas has a link or Facebook site or a site or anything?
Yeah, it's the Republic of Texas. They do have a Facebook.
Okay, send me a link and we'll get that put out today on all of our websites, and we'll get that posted on our Facebook links.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, we'll get that moving. So, anybody else got anything to add? Okay, with that, we'll just call it an evening, and because I got a couple things I got to do before I get back on the computer myself and get this other stuff out. So, but anyhow, with that, I'll say, may the Great Spirit bless you, may the Mother Earth feed you, take care of you, and may the Creator look over you. And remember, always, always practice what you preach and learn the truth.
Thank you very much, Ed. You have been listening to Education by Ed. It is currently May 20th, 2018, 6:33 Pacific Standard Time. And we would like to thank you all for joining us and those who are listening after the show and watching the video. Thank you for your time. Hopefully some of this information proves beneficial in your life. Remember, we do not take any liability or responsibility for the information. We just inform you of the information out there with the facts, and you use them as you see fit. You have a good day and night, and see you next week on Saturday for Disclaimers by Ed Johnston at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.